The grand atrium of the Galactic Council headquarters buzzed with the voices of 1,000 species. Towering crystalline structures hung from the ceiling, bathing the delegates in prismatic light designed to be soothing to most known neural systems. To Colonel Lena Reese, however, it felt oppressive. The light was just a bit too bright, the air just a bit too thin for human comfort. Another diplomatic success, her aide whispered as they moved away from the Vorlian delegation, whose four eyes had narrowed in suspicion throughout their entire conversation. Is that what you call being asked if we need oxygen supplements 6 times in one meeting? Reese straightened the collar of her formal US uniform, the dark blue material unyielding under her fingers. They're testing us, Matthews, seeing how Deathworlders handle discomfort. As commander of the diplomatic vessel US Resolute, Reese had become accustomed to the thinly veiled contempt from established council species. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, and their homeworld classification as a death world, a planet with environmental conditions so hostile that most sentient life would perish within hours, made them objects of both fascination and disdain. Colonel, your meeting with the Economic Advisory Committee begins in 12 minutes, her neural implant reminded her. Another session of being offered simplified explanations and adjusted terms for humanity's emerging colonies. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floors of the council station. 4 months into humanity's probationary membership, and Reese still felt the walls closing in, the condescension hanging heavy in the recycled air. But Earth had been clear in its directives. Maintain diplomacy, secure allies, and above all, show patience. Humanity needed the access to hyperspace corridors, trade routes, and technology that only council membership could provide. Ambassador Turov suggests we consider the Zithrian technology package, Matthews said, scrolling through data on his tablet. Says it would accelerate our development by at least 3 decades. Reese kept her face neutral, though her jaw tightened. And what does Zithrian want in return? Just access to our rare Earth minerals like last time. They claim the terms are favorable. They always do, Reese murmured, her gaze drifting to a group of Zithrians across the atrium, their scaled skin gleaming under the lights. Their empire held significant sway in the council, despite rumors of their strong-arm tactics with newer species. Her neural implant chimed with an encrypted message, marked urgent. Strange, communications were usually routed through official channels here. Reese blinked twice to open it, keeping her pace steady so as not to alert anyone watching. The message was brief. Proxima Beta Colony disaster not accident. Evidence of sabotage. Europa research station next target. Return to ship immediately. Reese felt ice in her veins. 2 weeks ago, a catastrophic system failure at the Proxima Beta Colony had resulted in the deaths of 214 humans when environmental controls failed during a storm. The council investigation had declared it a regrettable technical accident. Matthews, cancel my meetings, she said quietly. We're returning to the Resolute. Ma'am? The Vorlians will see it as a slight if. Now, Lieutenant. Something in her tone silenced any further objection. The journey back to their docked ship was tense. Reese's mind raced through the implications. If Proxima was sabotage, and Europa was next, humanity faced a threat far more immediate than diplomatic slights. When they reached the Resolute, Security Chief Tarek was waiting at the airlock, his face grim. In my office, Reese ordered, not breaking stride. Bring Lieutenant Matthews and Dr. Tien. Dr. Naomi Tien was already waiting when they arrived, her holographic displays floating around her like a technological cocoon. As the ship's senior data analyst, her expertise had proven invaluable in navigating the labyrinthine politics of the council. Shut down all standard communications, Reese ordered as the door sealed behind them. Switch to isolated systems only. Targ raised an eyebrow, but complied without question. We're dark, he confirmed after a moment. Reese turned to Dr. Tien. You sent the message. It wasn't a question. The analyst nodded, her fingers dancing through her holographic interface. I've been analyzing debris patterns from Proxima, Tien said, pulling up complex visualizations. The official report claimed a cascade failure in the environmental regulation systems. But I found nanoscale disruptors in the filtration mechanisms, Zithrian technology, modified to be undetectable by standard scans. Matthews stared at the display. That's impossible. The council wouldn't approve. The council didn't know. Tien cut in. But didn't want to know. But there's more. She swiped to a new display. Communications intercepts. I've been monitoring encrypted channels. Europa Research Station is showing the same disruption signatures in their system diagnostics. According to my models, complete system failure will occur within 72 hours. Europa holds our most advanced xenobiology research, Tarek said quietly, and over 350 personnel. Reese felt her chest tighten. The implications were staggering. If proven, this wasn't just sabotage. It was an act of war disguised as technological accidents. How did you access these channels? Matthews asked Tien, suspicion edging his voice. Council communication systems are heavily protected. Tien glanced at Reese, who nodded her permission. I developed a bypass protocol, Tien admitted. A digital parasite that mimics authorized access. It's not strictly within our diplomatic agreements. You hacked the council, Matthews translated, his face paling. I did what was necessary, Tien replied sharply. And it's a good thing I did. Humanity is being played, Lieutenant. We're following their rules while they're sabotaging our colonies. Reese stepped between them. The how doesn't matter right now. Saving Europa does. She turned to Tarek. What's the fastest we can reach the station? 36 hours if we push the engines beyond recommended parameters. Reese nodded. Make it happen. And I need a secure channel to Earth Command, authenticated at the highest level. As the others moved to carry out her orders, Reese remained still, staring at the evidence floating before her. The realization settled on her shoulders like a physical weight. Humanity had been naive. While they had extended open hands and diplomacy, others had concealed daggers. If true, everything changed. The rules had never been fair to begin with. Earth Command's response came 8 hours later, after reviewing the evidence Tien had compiled. Their directive was clear: secure Europa. Gather conclusive evidence. Prepare for escalation. The Resolute tore through hyperspace, its engines straining beyond safety margins. During the journey, Reese assembled a core team in the ship's secure briefing room. Tien for data analysis, Tarek for security tactics, Matthews for diplomatic protocols, and Lieutenant Marek from the Marine contingent. Marek stood apart from the others, his posture rigid. His wife and daughter had been stationed at Proxima Beta. They had not survived. I've been authorized to share what we know and the preliminary response strategy, Reese began. What's said in this room stays in this room. She gestured, and Tien projected new data. Economic analyses, technology transfer patterns, colonial development statistics. Dr. Tien has identified a pattern beyond the Proxima sabotage, Reese continued. For the past 8 months, human colonies have been experiencing technical difficulties at a rate 340% higher than other new species. Our economic development has been systematically hampered through seemingly unconnected events. Tien stepped forward. The Council technology packages supposedly accelerating our development have hidden limitations. Deliberate bottlenecks in processing capabilities, dependency hooks in core systems. They're keeping us weak, Tarek concluded. Not just us, Tien corrected. I've found similar patterns with the Taurians, the Elshire Collective, even the Ventari Federation, all species from world classified as challenging or hostile. All Deathworlders, in Council terminology. Matthews shook his head. But why? What's the strategic advantage? Resources, Marek said, speaking for the first time. His voice was flat, emotionless. Control of emerging markets. Cheaper extraction of materials without competition. Reese nodded. The Zithrians and their closest allies dominate Council policy. They evolved on garden worlds with minimal environmental pressures. Species like ours, adapted to harsh conditions, built for survival, represent long-term competition. They're ensuring we never reach our potential. They're scared of us, Marek said, a cold light in his eyes. They should be, Targ muttered. Reese held up her hand. Earth Command has authorized Operation Fair Play. As of now, we stop playing by their rules. She outlined the immediate plan, securing Europa Station, gathering irrefutable evidence of sabotage, and implementing countermeasures developed by Earth's best minds. But the long-term strategy was far more ambitious, a complete reassessment of humanity's approach to galactic politics. We'll continue the diplomatic dance, Reese explained. But behind the scenes, we implement asymmetric responses, stealth technology, information warfare, economic disruption. We're talking about violating council law, Matthews protested. They violated it first, Marek shot back. 214 times. Reese let the tension hang for a moment before continuing. Earth Command has also authorized first contact with other Deathworld species outside official channels. If we're being systematically undermined, chances are they are too. The meeting continued late into the ship's night cycle, sketching out the contours of humanity's new path. When Reese finally returned to her quarters, she stood before the viewport, watching the blur of hyperspace distortion. The stars stretched into lines of light, like tears in the fabric of space. Humanity had entered the galactic community with hope and openness. But the game had been rigged from the start. Now they would write new rules. The Resolute reached Europa Station with 12 hours to spare. TN's team identified and neutralized the sabotage devices, sophisticated nanoscale disruptors that had been gradually infiltrating critical systems through routine technology updates provided by Zithrian advisors. The evidence was undeniable. Reese transmitted it directly to Earth Command, bypassing standard Council communication protocols. The response came swiftly. Implement Phase 2. Contact established with Taurian resistance. Over the next 3 months, as the Resolute continued its official diplomatic mission, Operation Fair Play unfolded in the shadows. Earth's best engineers reverse-engineered and improved upon the Council technology, removing the hidden limitations. Specialized teams deployed stealth technology to secure communication channels between Deathworld species. Economic analysts identified and exploited weaknesses in the Council's trade systems. Reese found herself at the center of a growing web of resistance. The turning point came during a diplomatic reception on the Taurian homeworld of Karath. The Council believes we remain isolated from each other, said Kirill, the Taurian representative who had secretly contacted Reese. His fur rippled in the evening breeze as they stood on a secluded balcony. They feed us misinformation about other species, portraying your kind as violent and unpredictable. They tell us the same about you, Reese replied. That Taurians are insular, technologically backward. Kirill's upper jaw clicked, the Taurian equivalent of bitter laughter. While they extract our world's resources at prices they dictate. For too long, we believed we had no choice but to accept their guidance. What changed? You did. Kirill turned his 4 eyes toward her. Humans didn't just identify the sabotage. You developed countermeasures and shared them freely with us. No conditions. No hidden costs. Because we faced the same enemy, Reese said simply. Is that why your Lieutenant Marek has been training our defense forces in Earth combat techniques? Kirill asked, his tone knowing. Reese maintained her diplomatic composure, though inwardly, she noted that the Taurians had better intelligence than she'd anticipated. If I were aware of such activities, I couldn't comment on them. Kirill's fur rippled with amusement. Of course, just as I couldn't comment on the Elshire providing your colonies with stealth field technology, or the Ventari sharing their quantum encryption methods. The implications were clear. Operation Fair Play had expanded beyond Earth's control, evolving into something larger. A coalition of Deathworld species secretly preparing to challenge the established order. The Council suspects nothing, Reese asked. They believe their system is infallible, that we lack the will to resist. Kirill's voice lowered. But the Zithrians are growing concerned about your rapid recovery from recent accidents. They plan to make a more direct statement. What kind of statement? Military. A show of force against your Alpha Centauri settlement. 300 ships, officially 4 training exercises near your border. Reese felt her pulse quicken. When? 2 standard weeks, Kirill replied. They will demand inspection of your facilities for prohibited weapons development. When you refuse, they will claim security concerns and move in any way. How could you know this? Kirill's upper jaw clicked again. We have been slaves in all but name for generations, Colonel. We learn to listen when our masters speak among themselves. That night, aboard the Resolute, Reese convened an emergency meeting of the Fair Play leadership. The intelligence was verified through multiple channels. The Zithrian fleet was indeed mobilizing. 300 ships, Tarek said, studying the projections. We have 42 combat-capable vessels in the sector. Even with Taurian support, we're outnumbered 5-1. And their technology is still superior in direct confrontation, Tien added. Marek, who had grown increasingly central to the operation, leaned forward. Then we don't confront them directly. All eyes turn to him. The Zithrians expect us to either capitulate to their demands or attempt a conventional defense, he continued. Either way, they demonstrate their dominance. But what if Alpha Centauri is empty when they arrive? Evacuate an entire settlement, Matthews asked incredulously. Impossible on that timeline, and it would be seen as retreat. Not evacuate, Marek clarified. Hide. He outlined a plan so audacious that the room fell silent when he finished. It violated at least 7 major council laws and required technology integration that had never been attempted at this scale. But if it worked, Earth Command will never approve, Matthews said finally. Earth Command is already approved, Reese countered, bringing up the classified authorization she'd received hours earlier. Operation Ghost Colony is now active. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. The public face of diplomacy continued. Reese attended council meetings, filed formal protests about the Zithrian fleet movements, and requested mediation. All were expected to fail, and they did. Meanwhile, every available ship ferried specialized equipment to Alpha Centauri. Engineers from Earth worked alongside Taurian technicians and Elsher specialists. The settlement's population trained relentlessly for their roles. When the Zithrian fleet arrived, Admiral Vex Zitharian stood proudly on the bridge of his flagship, the Implacable Doctrine. 300 warships surrounded the Alpha Centauri colony world, sensors sweeping for the primitive human defenses they expected to encounter. Open communications, he ordered, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The humans would witness true power and understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. No response came from the planet. Scan again, he commanded, irritation rising. Where are their defense systems? Sir, his sensor officer reported, confusion evident. We're detecting nothing. The colony appears to be abandoned. Impossible. Vex snarled. Our intelligence confirmed over 10,000 humans were present 3 days ago. Scan for life signs. All frequencies. Again, nothing. The colony infrastructure was visible, buildings, roads, the spaceport, but no power signatures, no movement, no life. They must have evacuated, his executive officer suggested. No ships left this system, Vex countered. Our monitoring stations would have detected them. He paced the command deck, mandibles clicking rapidly. Send down inspection teams. I want the colony searched thoroughly. Drop ships deployed to the surface, carrying elite Zithrian troops. They moved through empty streets, buildings standing silent around them. Environmental suits protected them from potential traps, but sensors detected no hazards. The colony appeared simply vacant, as if its population had vanished into thin air. Aboard the Implacable Doctrine, Vex received increasingly bewildered reports. Sir, we found nothing. No humans, no indication of where they've gone. But their belongings remain, food half-eaten on tables, personal items in homes. This is some kind of trick, Vex insisted. Deploy the full contingent. Search every structure, every tunnel. They cannot have simply disappeared. On the far side of the colony, in a nondescript maintenance facility, Colonel Reese stood surrounded by holographic displays. Beside her, Kirill and Dr. Tin monitored their systems. The last squad, is entering the western sector, TN reported. Total Zithrian ground forces now at 98% deployment. Reese nodded. And the fleet, maintaining orbital position. All weapons systems active, but they're clearly confused. Understandable, Hero commented, his fur rippling with mirth. They're standing in the middle of 10,000 humans and can't see a single one. The combined stealth field technology, Earth's adaptive camouflage, Taurian phase shifting, and Elsher quantum displacement had rendered the entire colony and its population invisible to Zithrian sensors. Not theoretical invisibility, but true perceptual absence. The Zithrians walked through crowds of colonists who continued their daily routines, brushing past alien soldiers who couldn't see or hear them. Phase 2, Reese ordered. Throughout the colony, specialized devices activated simultaneously. Designed by Earth engineers based on Ventari concepts, they targeted the neural implants standard to all Zithrian military personnel. Not to harm, but to confuse. On the surface, Zithrian troops suddenly staggered as their visual feeds distorted. Communications failed. Navigation systems showed impossible readings. Weapons systems indicated critical failures. In orbit, the effect cascaded through the fleet as corrupted data streamed back from ground forces. Ship after ship reported systems malfunctions, phantom energy readings, and sensor ghosts. They're experiencing complete tactical disorientation, TN reported, watching the chaos unfold through their monitoring systems. And now, Reese said quietly, Phase 3. Throughout the Zithrian fleet, automated systems suddenly detected thousands of incoming missiles that didn't exist. Emergency protocols engaged. Defensive countermeasures fired at empty space. Ships performed evasive maneuvers, colliding with each other in the confusion. Admiral Vex watched in horror as his perfect formation disintegrated into chaos. A third of his fleet was reporting critical system failures. Another third was firing at phantoms. The remainder was trying to restore order while their own systems began to fail. "This is impossible," he whispered. "What kind of weapons are they using?" The answer came not in weapons fire, but in communication. Every screen on every Zithrian ship suddenly displayed the same image. Colonel Elena Reese, standing calmly in what appeared to be the colony's central plaza. "Admiral Vex," she addressed him directly, "your fleet is currently experiencing a non-lethal system-wide disruption. You're not under attack. I repeat, no offensive weapons have been fired." Vex's mandibles clicked in fury. "What have you done?" "We've demonstrated an alternative approach to diplomacy," Reese replied evenly. "One that doesn't require 300 warships to make a point." Behind her, the empty colony shimmed into visibility. Thousands of humans went about their business, many looking up at the sky with knowing smiles. "Your troops are unharmed," Reese continued. "They are, however, thoroughly confused and currently incapable of coordinated action. Your fleet is experiencing similar difficulties. These effects will dissipate within 6 hours, allowing for safe withdrawal. This is an act of war." Vex snarled. "No, Admiral. This is a demonstration of why Deathworlders should not be underestimated." Reese's expression hardened. "We know about Proxima Beta. We know about the systematic sabotage, the economic manipulation, the deliberate hampering of our development." She paused, then added, "And now the entire galaxy knows too." Vex felt cold fear grip him. "What do you mean?" In answer, Reese gestured and the transmission split to show additional feeds, broadcasts streaming across every major communications channel in Council space. The evidence TN had compiled, testimony from other affected species, records of Zithria directives regarding management of emerging threats. "While your fleet was focused on us, joint Humantorian Elsher teams accessed the Council's central archives," Reese explained. "The unaltered records are now available to every member species. The truth about how the Council, and particularly the Zithrian Empire, has manipulated, sabotaged, and controlled developing worlds." The implication struck Vex like a physical blow. Centuries of careful manipulation, exposed in an instant. You've broken dozens of council laws, he managed finally. Yes, Reese acknowledged. We stopped playing by rules designed to ensure we lose. I suggest you withdraw your fleet, Admiral. A new era of galactic relations has begun, one based on truth rather than manipulation. How the Zithrian Empire adapts to this reality is up to you. The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at the chaotic displays of his crippled fleet. For the first time in his military career, he gave the order to retreat. The events at Alpha Centauri, soon known throughout the galaxy as the Day of Revelation, triggered a fundamental shift in the galactic order. As evidence of the systematic oppression spread, worlds that had been kept isolated from each other began to communicate directly. Species that had been taught to fear or distrust one another discovered common experiences and shared grievances. The Council fractured along ideological lines. The Zithrian faction attempted to maintain control through threats of economic sanctions, but their leverage diminished as new trade agreements formed between formerly subjugated worlds. 6 months after Alpha Centauri, representatives from 27 species gathered on Trappist, a neutral world with environmental conditions challenging to most participants, symbolically chosen to represent the diverse adaptations of sentient life. Colonel Reese, now Ambassador Reese, stood at the center of the assembly as they prepared to sign the Galactic Fair Play Charter. We gather not to destroy, but to rebuild, she addressed the delegates. Not to seek vengeance for past wrongs, but to ensure such systematic oppression never happens again. The Charter established new principles for interspecies relations, technological sharing without hidden limitations, economic cooperation without exploitation, cultural exchange without domination. Most significantly, it rejected the classification of worlds as garden or death, recognizing that adaptation to challenging environments produced resilience valuable to all. Kirill, representing the Taurian Confederation, spoke next. For generations, we believed ourselves alone, isolated oddities in a galaxy of harmony. We now understand that our strength lies in our differences, not despite them. As the delegates signed the charter, snow began to fall outside the transparent dome of the assembly hall. Many species present had never seen snow before. On their worlds, such conditions would be lethal. Yet here they stood together, each in their environmental adaptations, watching crystalline waterfall from alien skies. Appropriate weather for a new beginning, Dr. Tan remarked, standing beside Reese. Reese nodded, watching the delegates mingle, former enemies now cautious allies, former victims now empowered partners. Lieutenant Marek stood among a group of Elshir, demonstrating Earth martial arts techniques. His grief over Proxima would never fully heal, but he had found purpose in building something new from the ashes of tragedy. We still face challenges, Reese acknowledged. The Zithrians and their closest allies refuse to recognize our charter. Half the original council maintains sanctions against us. They're afraid, Tien said simply. They've controlled the narrative for so long. They don't know how to exist in a galaxy where information flows freely. They'll adapt or they'll fade, Reese replied. That's the lesson of Deathworlds, isn't it? Adapt or perish. As the ceremony concluded, delegates stepped outside to experience the gentle snowfall. Species that had once been manipulated into fearing each other now stood side by side, reaching out to catch falling crystals on appendages evolved on distant worlds. In that moment, watching representatives of worlds once labeled as too harsh, too dangerous, too challenging for proper civilization, Reese understood the true meaning of their victory. They had not simply stopped playing by unfair rules. They had created space for a new kind of game altogether. One where the ability to thrive in adversity was recognized not as a threat, but as humanity's greatest gift to the stars. Far above, the stars shone through breaks in the clouds, ancient light reaching their eyes after journeys of unimaginable distance. Light that had left its source long before any of their civilizations had risen, and would continue long after they were gone. The galaxy was vast beyond comprehension, with room enough for all manner of life, and all forms of adaptation. The Deathworlders had stopped playing fair, and in doing so, had made fairness possible at last.